My fiancé called off our wedding a week before the ceremony and posted online that I was too boring to be a wife. I disappeared quietly without fighting. 1 year later, on the night of his company's grand opening, when he walked in and saw me standing there as the major investor, he dropped his glass in shock. I never imagined that a week before my wedding, my world would shatter so completely. I'm Sophie Carter, 28 years old, living in Los Angeles, and I had everything planned out. The dress, the venue, the invitations, everything. I was about to marry my college sweetheart, Ethan, who was everything I ever thought I wanted in a man. He was charming, successful, and loved me, or so I thought. We'd been together for 4 years. We met at UCLA, and the connection was instant. Ethan was the kind of guy who would walk into a room and instantly command attention, and I admired that about him. But he also had a way of making me feel special, like I was the only one in the room that mattered. He was a businessman and entrepreneur, actually, who had just launched his own tech company. Ambitious, confident, and with a future that looked as bright as the sun. And me? I was the quiet one, the steady presence beside him. I worked as a marketing manager for a boutique agency. Nothing glamorous, but I loved it. I always supported him, encouraged him, and stood by him when the going got tough. But as our wedding day drew closer, something changed. It was the night before my bridal shower, and I had just finished the final fitting for my wedding dress. I was on cloud 9, so excited for what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Ethan had just returned from a business trip, and we were having dinner at his place. He seemed distant, distracted. I chalked it up to the stress of his new business venture, but deep down, I had a nagging feeling that something was wrong. Then, without any warning, Ethan dropped a bombshell on me. "I don't think I can do this," he said, his voice calm but unyielding. "I don't think I can marry you." I sat there, frozen, my fork halfway to my mouth. "What?" I managed to say, my mind racing, heart pounding. He sighed, looking at the table as if he couldn't bear to look at me. "Sophie, I think you're just too boring to be my wife. You're too predictable. You never take risks, and I need someone who can keep up with me. You're just too safe. I need more excitement in my life. I can't do this." His words hit me like a slap in the face. It was as if the ground had been ripped out from beneath me, and I was falling into a dark abyss. Before I could say anything, he stood up, walked to his phone, and opened Instagram. "I'm going to make this official," he said, as if it was the most casual thing in the world. He posted a picture of us from our last vacation, one of those cute couple selfies where everything looks perfect. And then he added the most humiliating caption I could ever imagine. "Turns out, I'm not ready for a boring life. She's too predictable to be my wife. Better things ahead." My face went pale. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. He just looked at me, waiting for me to react, but I had nothing left to say. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about love, was suddenly a lie. I don't know how long I sat there after he posted it, staring at the screen. People started commenting, liking it. Some friends from college even congratulated him for making the right choice. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of a fight. I stood up quietly, grabbed my things, and walked out of his apartment. No arguments, no accusations, just a slow, silent exit from the life I had built with him. I didn't tell anyone at first. I didn't want pity. I just needed to disappear. For the next few months, I kept to myself. I moved out of the apartment we were supposed to share and found a small place in a quieter part of the city. I cut off contact with almost everyone in my life, including Ethan. I didn't want to hear his excuses. I didn't want to know why he thought I wasn't good enough. I had to rebuild myself, not for him, but for me. I started taking risks. I put my heart and soul into my career. I enrolled in a few design courses, something I'd always wanted to do but had put off for years. Slowly, I built a new version of myself, stronger, more confident, and determined to never let anyone make me feel small again. But just when I thought I had moved on completely, something happened that shook me to my core. Months passed, and life slowly but surely moved forward. I immersed myself in my work, focused on my personal growth, and distanced myself from all the memories that Ethan had left behind. But just when I thought I was in control again, my phone buzzed one evening with a message that made my stomach drop. It was a notification from Instagram. Ethan had posted something again. This time the post was different. It wasn't a photo of us or even a shot of his company's latest project. Instead, it was a clip of him at his company's grand opening event. He was wearing a crisp suit, looking confident as ever, and standing in front of a lavish backdrop. The caption read, "A new chapter begins today, and I'm grateful for the incredible people in my life who pushed me to reach new heights, especially the person who truly understands me." The person he was referring to was someone I didn't know, a woman standing next to him in the video. She was smiling brightly, her arm around his waist, a clear sign that they were more than just colleagues. The knot in my stomach tightened. My mind raced. I couldn't help but feel a mixture of anger and betrayal. Was this the excitement he had been looking for? Had he really moved on so easily? I felt a sudden rush of emotions. Everything I had worked so hard to forget came rushing back. But instead of allowing myself to be consumed by jealousy or rage, I did something that felt both terrifying and empowering at the same time. I sent a message to one of my old colleagues who still worked at Ethan's company. I needed to know more. I wanted to understand why he was posting about this new woman and why it felt like everything I had known was slipping away. The response came almost instantly. "Yeah, Ethan's been seeing her for a while now. Her name's Rachel. She's from his finance team. They've been talking about her joining the company as a partner, but it's clear there's something more going on between them. You know how he is, Sophie. He's always chasing the next big thing." The words stung. The next big thing. Was that how he saw me? Just another phase he grew bored of? I couldn't help but feel like everything that had once been so perfect was now a joke. The next day, I made a decision that I never thought I'd make. I decided to go to the grand opening of Ethan's company, not as his ex-fiancé, not as someone who was holding on to the past, but as someone who had her own life now, as someone who didn't need to be a part of his world anymore, but someone who could walk into it and shake it up. I pulled a few strings, used some of my new connections, and managed to get an invitation. The evening of the event arrived, and I was ready. I put on a designer gown that I'd bought a few months ago, something bold, something unforgettable. I knew I had to look the part if I was going to make an entrance. As I walked into the grand ballroom, the buzz of the crowd hit me immediately. I had been to enough of these events to know how things work. The laughter, the small talk, the clinking of glasses, but tonight everything felt different. I wasn't just an observer. I was about to take my place in this world, and I wasn't going to let Ethan or anyone else think I was small. As I made my way through the crowd, I saw him, Ethan. He was standing near the stage talking to someone. He looked exactly the same, but there was a coldness in his eyes now, something I hadn't seen before. His gaze flickered across the room, but then it stopped. His eyes locked onto me. Time seemed to freeze for a second. His expression shifted from casual to disbelief. I could see the recognition in his eyes, followed by a flash of panic. Before he could say anything, I stepped forward, the sound of my heels echoing in the room. The moment was perfect. I hadn't even planned it this way, but it felt like fate was on my side. I walked straight past him, confident and poised. I didn't look back, not even for a second. But just as I passed by, I heard his voice, a little too loud for comfort. "Sophie?" I didn't answer. I kept walking, and then, just as I was about to turn the corner into the main event hall, I stopped. I turned slowly, facing him. I could see the confusion and realization spreading across his face. "Is this some sort of joke?" he asked, his voice shaky. "What are you doing here?" I smiled, but there was no humor in it, only a calm, calculated sense of control. "I'm here as the major investor," I said, my voice steady, despite the adrenaline rushing through me. "I'm the one who just put the money into this company. I'm the one who's helping make it succeed now. Funny how things work out, huh?" The shock on his face was palpable. His hand, which had been holding a glass of wine, trembled and the glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. People around us gasped. Ethan didn't even seem to notice the broken glass, his eyes wide as he stared at me. He took a few steps forward, his voice barely a whisper. You did this? I nodded. Yes, I did. His gaze flickered toward Rachel, who was now standing behind him. I could see the awkwardness in her posture as she tried to piece together what was happening. I never wanted to be a part of your world, I continued, my voice gaining strength. But now I'm controlling a part of it. Funny how life works, isn't it? Ethan stood there, completely stunned, unable to form a coherent sentence. His eyes were darting back and forth between me and Rachel, who seemed to be trying to figure out if this was some elaborate joke. But for me, this wasn't a game. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I could see the shift in Ethan's demeanor, the realization sinking in that he had underestimated me, that he had pushed me away for being too boring, and now I was standing in front of him in complete control of a situation he thought he would own. You're not joking, are you? Ethan finally managed, his voice shaky. You're really the investor? I'm more than that, Ethan, I interrupted, my gaze never leaving his. I'm the one who saw the potential in your company when no one else did. And now, here I am, a bigger part of it than you ever thought I could be. But tell me, how does it feel to be on the other side now? His face flushed a deep red. I could see the anger bubbling beneath the surface, but I didn't care. After everything he put me through, this was the moment I had been dreaming of. The moment where I wasn't the one left behind, the one humiliated, the one forgotten. As I turned to walk away, I heard him call out again. Sophie, wait, you can't just... I stopped in my tracks, but this time, I didn't turn around. You left me without a second thought, Ethan. You threw me away like I was nothing. You posted about how boring I was, how I wasn't exciting enough for your perfect life. And now, here I am, a force in your world. I'd say this is a pretty big twist, don't you think? A brief silence followed, and in that moment, I could almost feel the room holding its breath. Ethan's expression had changed, no longer filled with confidence, but with a mix of disbelief and regret. But just as I thought I had him cornered, another twist hit me like a punch to the gut. Is that why you're really here? His voice was low now, almost accusing. To get back at me? To make me look bad in front of everyone? I wasn't expecting that. His words were like a slap. For a moment, I was speechless. Of course, I had wanted to prove him wrong. Of course, I wanted to show him that I was so much more than the person he'd discarded. But now he was twisting this into something else. Was he really trying to make me look petty? I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. I looked at him, my voice steady but firm. I'm not here to get back at you, Ethan. I'm here because I believe in this company. I'm here because I'm part of this, and no one, not even you, can take that away from me. Before he could respond, I turned and walked towards the center of the room, my heart pounding in my chest. I had come here to make a statement, and I wasn't about to let Ethan or anyone else take that away from me. As I moved through the crowd, I felt a strange sense of power. I had never been in control of my own narrative like this before. Ethan had always been the one to call the shots, the one who made decisions for both of us. But now I was calling the shots, and he was the one left scrambling. But just as I thought I was in the clear, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around to see Rachel standing there, her expression unreadable. I don't think you're being fair to him, she said, her voice cool but sharp. You don't know everything that happened between us. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? You think I don't know? I saw the way he looked at you in that video. Don't pretend like this isn't personal. Rachel hesitated, clearly thrown off by my directness. It's not what you think. I wasn't buying it. Save it. I'm not here to get into a petty argument. I'm here to make one thing clear. I'm not your competition. I'm not the girl you both think you can walk all over. Her face stiffened, and I could see a flicker of insecurity in her eyes. It was a brief moment, but I caught it. She wasn't as confident as she wanted everyone to believe. Before I could say anything more, someone else approached, a tall man in a sharp suit. He had an air of authority about him, and he was looking right at me. Miss Carter, he said, his voice smooth and professional. I'm James Richards. I believe we have a lot to discuss. I looked at him, confused. Excuse me? Your investment? He continued, glancing at Ethan and then back at me. It's impressive. We've been hearing a lot about your decision to back this company. I think you're making a very wise choice. Would you mind if we spoke further about the future of your involvement? I could feel Ethan's gaze on me from behind, but I didn't acknowledge him. Instead, I nodded at James. Sure, I'd be happy to discuss it. As I walked with James to the side of the room, I could feel Ethan's eyes burning into my back. I could almost hear the frustration building within him, but I didn't care. This was my moment, and as James and I talked about future plans, I could see Ethan in my peripheral vision, still trying to piece together what was happening, still unsure of how I had gotten this far. But the truth was, Ethan had underestimated me. He had underestimated just how far I could go. And now, as the evening unfolded, I realized something. I was no longer the woman he left behind. I wasn't the girl he had discarded because he thought I was boring. I was the woman who had turned everything around. I was in control now, and there was no going back. As James and I continued our conversation, I could feel the eyes of the room on me, but I stayed focused. I wasn't going to let anything or anyone distract me now. I had worked too hard to get here, and there was no way I was going to let Ethan or Rachel or anyone else throw me off my game. We talked about potential collaborations, the direction the company was headed, and how my investment could help expand its reach. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't ignore the tension in the air. Ethan was still standing across the room, his jaw clenched, his eyes following every move I made. I could almost hear the thoughts running through his head. How did this happen? How is she doing this? It felt good, honestly, knowing that I had him rattled. After everything he had put me through, seeing him lose his cool was like a sweet taste of revenge. But I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to prove something to myself, and I wasn't going to let him spoil that. As James excused himself to talk to a few other people in the room, I took a deep breath and glanced back toward Ethan. He was now standing near the bar, his fingers drumming against the counter nervously. I couldn't help but notice that Rachel was nowhere to be seen. Curiosity gnawed at me. Where had she gone? Had she left because of the tension between us, or was something else going on? But before I could ponder it too much, I caught a glimpse of someone else in the room, someone who wasn't supposed to be here. It was my ex-best friend, Chloe. She was standing near the back of the room, talking to one of Ethan's colleagues. I felt my stomach twist. Chloe? What was she doing here? I hadn't seen her in over a year. The last time we spoke was right after the wedding fiasco, when Ethan had humiliated me. She had completely disappeared from my life after that, just like everyone else. I hadn't thought about her much, but seeing her now at this event made my blood run cold. My mind raced. Was she involved in all of this somehow? Had she known about Ethan and Rachel from the start? Without thinking, I started to walk toward her, my heart pounding in my chest. But as I got closer, I realized that something wasn't right. Chloe was staring at me, her face pale and expressionless, but she wasn't making eye contact. In fact, she looked like she was trying to avoid me completely. The moment I reached her, she finally looked up. Her eyes were wide with surprise, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of guilt. "Sophie," she said, her voice soft, almost apologetic. "I didn't know you were going to be here." I crossed my arms, trying to keep my voice calm, even though I could feel the anger rising inside me. "Really? You didn't know? How convenient." She shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze again. I didn't want to cause any problems. I thought you'd be staying away." I narrowed my eyes at her. "What's that supposed to mean? You thought I'd be staying away? Did you think I was going to just let Ethan walk all over me and not do anything about it?" Chloe flinched at the sharpness in my tone, and I could see her trying to come up with an excuse, but before she could say anything, I interrupted. "You knew, didn't you?" I said quietly, but the words cut through the noise of the party. "You knew about Rachel and Ethan. You knew about everything, didn't you?" For a long moment, Chloe didn't respond. Then, finally, she nodded, her shoulders slumping. "I didn't want to get involved, Sophie. I thought it was better if I just stayed out of it." I felt my chest tighten. "You stayed out of it? You were my best friend, Chloe. You were supposed to have my back." I know, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. But when Ethan started talking about Rachel, I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to make things worse. I took a step back, the disappointment settling deep in my gut. This was the woman I had trusted, the one who had been there for me through everything. And now she was telling me that she had known and done nothing. "Do you even care?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She opened her mouth to say something, but before she could, I heard Ethan's voice from across the room calling my name again. "Sophie, wait." I didn't even look at him. I wasn't about to let him control the moment any longer. I had worked too hard for this, and I wasn't going to let his confusion or guilt ruin it for me. I turned away from Chloe and walked back toward the center of the room. But just as I was about to leave her behind, I heard something that made my blood run cold. "I never wanted you to find out this way," Chloe said, her voice barely audible, but I heard it clearly. "But Ethan, he didn't just break up with you. He used you." My feet froze in place. The words didn't register at first. "Used me?" Chloe stepped closer, her voice shaking now. "He never cared about you the way you thought he did. He never really loved you, Sophie. You were just a stepping stone, a way for him to climb higher." I turned slowly, my heart racing, my hands trembling. "What are you talking about?" Chloe's eyes darted around the room nervously. He's been using you as leverage. He needed someone to back him, someone who looked like they had it all together. And when you were no longer useful to him, he discarded you like everyone else. He wanted the power, the image, the perfect life. You weren't a part of that anymore. My mind spun as I tried to process what she was saying. Ethan had used me this entire time, but the idea was so foreign, so difficult to accept. He had always seemed so genuine, so caring, but maybe that was just an act. Maybe everything had been a manipulation from the start. Before I could speak, I felt a presence behind me. Ethan was there, standing close, his face tight with emotion. His gaze flickered to Chloe, then back to me. He was silent, but I could see the panic in his eyes. I stepped back, away from him. "You used me? For what? For power? For money?" His lips parted, but no words came out. The silence was deafening. I looked at him one last time, my voice shaking with disbelief. "I hope this new chapter you're starting is everything you dreamed of, Ethan, because it's the last one you'll ever share with me." The tension in the room was palpable. I felt Ethan's eyes boring into the back of my head as I made my way to the exit. My body felt heavy, like every step I took was a weight I had to carry. I didn't know how much longer I could stay in this environment. It was suffocating, seeing all the people who had once been a part of my life now turning their backs on me, or worse, pretending everything was fine. But as I stepped out into the cool night air, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in over a year, I wasn't just a victim of Ethan's decisions. I had taken control of my life. I had built something solid while he was still stuck in his web of lies and manipulation. I leaned against the side of the building, taking a deep breath and trying to collect my thoughts. What Chloe had said to me, it still rattled in my mind. Ethan had used me all along. How could I have been so blind? I had believed every word he said, every promise, every smile, and in the end, I had been nothing but a pawn in his game. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't notice someone approaching until I heard a voice call my name. "Sophie?" I turned, startled, to see James standing there. His expression was serious, but there was something else in his eyes, something I couldn't quite place. "You okay?" he asked, stepping closer. "I saw what happened in there. Are you all right?" I shook my head, still trying to process everything. "I don't know, James. I thought I knew who Ethan was. I thought I understood what we had, but now it feels like none of it was real." He looked at me with sympathy, then took a step closer. "I get it. He's a snake, Sophie. You're better off without him." I smiled weakly. "Thanks, I just can't believe it. I thought I was strong enough to handle everything, but seeing him with Rachel, hearing Chloe's words, it hurts, you know?" James nodded, his voice low. "I understand, but don't forget, Sophie, you don't need him. You've built something incredible. This company, this investment, it's all because of you, not him." I looked at him, my mind processing his words. It wasn't just about the company, it was about me. I had taken control of my life and my future. I had built something from scratch, despite everything Ethan had done to me, and I wasn't going to let him or anyone take that away from me. Thanks, James, I said quietly. I needed to hear that. Just as I was about to turn back toward the event, I heard footsteps behind me again. This time, it was Ethan. His voice was tight as he called my name again. Sophie, please. Wait. I didn't turn around. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to let him back into my life. But Ethan was persistent. He stepped closer, his voice shaking. Sophie, listen to me. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean any of it. I could feel his presence behind me, the desperation in his voice, but I refused to face him. Ethan, don't. Just don't. You had your chance. You made your decision, and now I'm making mine. I felt his hand touch my shoulder, and I flinched. His touch used to feel comforting, safe even, but now it felt like the touch of a stranger, someone who had broken me into 1,000 pieces. Please, Sophie, I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but I need you. We can fix this, he begged. I turned slowly to face him, my heart pounding. He looked so different now, desperate, broken. The man who once seemed so certain of everything now unraveling in front of me. But I wasn't fooled. I had seen enough. I wasn't going to let him destroy me again. You don't need me, Ethan, I said, my voice calm but firm. What you need is someone to clean up your mess. But I'm not that person anymore. I'm done. His face twisted with shock, and for a split second, I thought I saw something in his eyes, regret, or was it just fear? Either way, it didn't matter. The man who had once promised me forever was now nothing but a ghost of the past. And then, something I didn't expect happened. Ethan took a step forward, almost as if he was about to say something, but his eyes flickered behind me. A shadow passed over his face, and I could see the shift in his demeanor. I turned to follow his gaze, and I froze. Rachel was standing in the doorway, her expression cold. She wasn't looking at me, though. No, she was looking at Ethan, and what I saw next sent a shockwave through my entire body. Rachel walked toward Ethan slowly, a look of contempt on her face. But instead of embracing him or speaking to him like I thought she would, she slapped him hard across the face. The room seemed to fall silent for a moment. Ethan stood there, stunned, his face red from the force of the slap. His hand went to his cheek, but Rachel didn't even flinch. She didn't look at him with anger or pain. She looked at him with pure disgust. I watched in disbelief as Rachel turned and walked out of the room without another word. Ethan stood there for a moment, his mouth hanging open, as if he couldn't comprehend what had just happened. But then, as if a switch had flipped, he turned back to me. The look in his eyes wasn't regret anymore. It wasn't desperation. It was fury. You think this is funny, Sophie? He spat. You think you've won? This is far from over. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I stepped back, my heart racing again, but this time I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel helpless. I felt liberated. The man who had once controlled my life was now a shell of the person he used to be. No, Ethan, I said quietly, a sense of finality in my voice. I'm not dealing with you anymore. As Ethan stood there, his face red with anger, I could feel my pulse quicken. For a brief moment, I wondered if I'd made the right decision by confronting him, but then the fury in his eyes just seemed empty. The mask he had worn for so long, the facade of control and arrogance, was slipping, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. But before I could say anything more, I noticed something strange. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a familiar figure standing near the entrance, watching the scene unfold. It was James. He wasn't just standing there as a bystander this time. He was holding something in his hand. It took me a second to process what it was. A phone. My heart skipped a beat as I realized what was happening. James had been recording the entire exchange. At first, I felt a rush of panic. Was he really going to expose me like this? But then I saw the look on his face. It wasn't malicious. He wasn't out to humiliate anyone. He was watching with concern, his eyes locked on Ethan as if waiting for something. I looked back at Ethan, who seemed oblivious to what was happening behind him. He was still glaring at me, clearly seething with rage, but then something caught his eye. A shadow. I didn't need to turn around to know that someone else had entered the scene. The atmosphere in the room shifted again, this time more dramatically. Ethan's face drained of color, and for the first time in a long while, he looked vulnerable. I followed his gaze, and my stomach twisted when I saw who had just entered. It was my mother. She wasn't alone, though. She was with someone I hadn't seen in years. My father? The last time I had seen my father, he was a shadow of the man he once was, a broken man who had left our family when I was younger. He disappeared, leaving my mother to pick up the pieces. But now, here he was, walking into the room with my mother, dressed sharply and with an air of confidence I hadn't seen in him in years. What is this? Ethan stammered, taking a step back, clearly rattled by the sight of my father. Do you want to explain what's going on here? My father's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Because it doesn't look like you've been honest with Sophie. Ethan's eyes widened. He looked between me, my mother, and my father, completely flustered. The smug arrogance he had carried for so long seemed to evaporate in an instant. You have no right to be here, Ethan said, his voice shaking. This is none of your business. But my father wasn't backing down. He took a step forward, his eyes cold and unyielding. No, Ethan, you've been playing with Sophie's life for far too long. Now, it's time for you to face the consequences. I watched as Ethan's face turned from anger to confusion, then finally to fear. He had no idea what was coming, and neither did I, honestly. But I could feel the shift in the room. My father's presence alone seemed to have unsettled Ethan in a way nothing else had. Dad, what are you doing? I asked quietly, still processing everything that had just happened. My father's gaze softened for a brief moment when he looked at me. I'm here to make sure he knows exactly what he's done and to remind him of what he's going to lose. I felt a wave of gratitude rush over me. The man who had walked out of my life years ago was now here, standing by me, ready to help me take down the person who had hurt me the most. I didn't know why he was back now, after all these years, but I couldn't help but feel like it was exactly what I needed. Ethan's hands clenched into fists, his jaw tightening as he glared at my father. But before he could say anything, I saw James step forward, phone still in hand. That's enough, Ethan, James said, his voice firm. I've been recording the entire conversation. You've made your mistakes, but I'm not going to stand here and let you walk away unscathed. Ethan's eyes flicked to James, realization dawning on him. His face twisted with rage again as he took a step toward James, but I was ready. I moved quickly, stepping between them before Ethan could make any move. Stay away from him, Ethan, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling around me. This is over. Ethan froze for a moment, his gaze darting between James, my father, and me. It was clear he was grasping at straws, trying to come up with some excuse, some explanation for what had happened, but no words came. He was defeated. Without another word, Ethan turned and walked out of the room, the door swinging closed behind him, with a finality that seemed to echo through the silence. For the first time in over a year, I felt like I could breathe again, like I had finally won. But the twist didn't end there. As soon as Ethan left, my mother stepped forward, looking at me with a mixture of concern and something I couldn't place. Sophie, she began softly, I know this isn't easy, but you have to understand something. She hesitated for a moment, as if trying to choose her words carefully. There's more to Ethan's story than you think. I turned to her, confusion swirling in my chest. What do you mean? What more is there? He humiliated me, called off our wedding, and moved on with someone else. What could be worse than that? My mother sighed, looking away for a moment as though trying to gather her thoughts. Ethan wasn't acting alone. He had someone behind him, someone who wanted to make sure you'd never succeed. I felt a chill run down my spine. Who? She paused, her voice barely a whisper. Your ex-business partner, the one you thought had disappeared after the fallout with Ethan. And just like that, the world tilted again. The revelation hung in the air like a heavy fog. My ex-business partner, I hadn't thought about him in ages, not since the collapse of my small startup and the way everything fell apart when I had been on the verge of something great. We'd parted ways after a massive disagreement, and I never expected him to resurface, especially not in this context. I looked at my mother, trying to piece everything together. You're telling me Ethan's actions weren't just his idea? That he had someone else pushing him to do this? My mother's eyes met mine, her expression pained. It's complicated, Sophie. I didn't want to get involved before, but I should have told you sooner. Before I could ask more, the door to the venue swung open again, and the atmosphere shifted once more. A group of people entered, all dressed to impress, laughing and chatting amongst themselves. But one person in particular caught my eye. It was a man I hadn't seen in over a year, Ryan. He was my ex-business partner, the one my mother had just mentioned. His sharp features and confident stride hadn't changed, but the glint in his eyes told a different story. I could see the ambition and the hunger in him, a stark contrast to the man I had once trusted with my future. Ryan spotted me instantly and smiled, a devilish grin that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. He walked toward me slowly, almost as if he were savoring the moment. His gaze never left mine. Sophie, he said, his voice dripping with false warmth. It's been a while. I see you're still playing in the big leagues, huh? The room seemed to shrink around me as I stared at him. My mind was racing, trying to process this new twist. What did Ryan have to do with all of this? Why was he here, in the middle of a night that was supposed to be about Ethan's downfall? Ryan, what are you doing here? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. But the question felt too simple for the storm inside me. He smiled wider, that same unsettling look in his eyes. Oh, I've been keeping an eye on things, Sophie. You didn't think I'd just disappear, did you? Not when there's so much left to finish. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't just about Ethan anymore. Ryan's reappearance meant something bigger, something I hadn't expected. Behind me, my father stepped forward, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the room. He didn't say a word, but his look alone told Ryan that he was no longer the one in control. Ryan faltered for a moment before recovering, his confident facade slipping slightly. Your father has a lot of influence in this town, Sophie, Ryan continued, his tone shifting. But you're gonna need more than that to make it through this. You're not the one who gets to call the shots anymore. I could feel my blood boiling. Who did Ryan think he was? My future wasn't up to him, and I wasn't about to let him have any more say in my life. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, my eyes scanning the screen. It was a message from James. Check the investor list. Something's off. My heart skipped a beat. What did he mean by that? I quickly unlocked my phone and opened the investor list for the event, the one that had been provided to me earlier. I scrolled through the names, looking for anything that might stand out, and then I saw it. Ethan's name was still on the list. But under his name, there was another name I didn't recognize. It was a company, an investment firm that had been connected to Ryan in the past, one that I thought had been completely shut down after our fallout. The pieces were beginning to fall into place. Ryan had been behind all of this. He was the one pulling the strings, manipulating Ethan into doing his bidding, just as he had done with my company. He had orchestrated the breakup, the public humiliation, everything. I felt a surge of rage and determination course through me. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. Not again. I turned to Ryan, my voice steady but fierce. You thought you could control me, Ryan. That you could make me disappear, ruin everything I've worked for, but you've underestimated me. I'm done being your pawn. Ryan's face twisted in disbelief. You're nothing without me, Sophie. You always were. You wouldn't have made it this far if it weren't for me. I shook my head, refusing to let his words get to me. That's where you're wrong. I'm not just some project you can mold. I built everything on my own, and I'm not about to let you destroy it. Ryan's smile faltered, and for a split second I saw the cracks in his confidence. He was rattled, unsure of how to handle my defiance. But then, something unexpected happened. James appeared by my side, his presence a calm contrast to the tension in the room. He had a piece of paper in his hand, and as he handed it to me, his eyes locked with mine, silently offering support. I glanced at the paper, my heart racing as I read the contents. It was a legal documented agreement I hadn't seen before, one that had my name at the top with Ryan's company listed as a partner. This was the last thing I expected to see, but the implications were clear. Ryan had been trying to secretly partner with me to get a piece of the investment I had secured for the event. But he had gone behind my back, trying to sneak in and take control when he thought I wouldn't notice. I looked at him with renewed resolve. "You're out of the picture, Ryan. This deal is mine, and it's staying that way." His eyes burned with fury, but he knew he was beaten. He could sense it, the way the room had shifted. My father, James, and the others who had quietly supported me were all part of something bigger now. Ryan had lost his grip on the situation. Before he could say anything more, I turned to my father. "Let's end this." With a firm nod, my father made the call, and just like that, Ryan's influence was wiped from the event. Ethan was no longer a threat, and with the backing I had now secured, the grand opening went forward smoothly. The night ended on a high note, but as the crowd dispersed, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. I had taken control of my own destiny, no longer hiding in the shadows of others' manipulations. The last twist? When I looked over to James, I realized something I hadn't seen before. He wasn't just an ally. He was the one who had quietly, steadily helped me turn the tables, guiding me without ever needing to take center stage. "I think it's time for a celebration," he said with a grin. And I knew in that moment I was finally free.